Midnight held its breath as Dry Creek waited for trouble, and Jesse Hale said, "I smell a lie riding in with the dust." A gun cracked, carving the night, and glass screamed from the saloon lamp. Elena Cross gasped behind a shutter and whispered, "Run, Jesse." Sheriff Cole Ransom stepped into the street like a sermon with a noose, and said, "Drop the iron, son." Jesse felt the old burn of betrayal crawl his spine and said, "You set this stage, Sheriff." Tommy Finch tugged a rein and said, "Horse is ready." A bell tolled once, warning or judgment, and boots began to gather. Jesse tasted ash and said, "Someone wants me dead or damned." Ransom smiled like winter. Both sound tidy. The wind shoved dust between them like a thin grave. Elena's eyes flashed, a storm in candlelight. "Please," she said, "not here." Jesse lifted his hat brim and said, "Now or never." Dawn stained the mesas with bruised gold as Jesse and Tommy reached the dry wash. Jesse said, "That shot was a message." Tommy said, "From who?" Jesse listened to the wind. "From whoever holds Ransom's reins." Tommy's voice shook. "You think Elena warned you?" Jesse stared at the town, now small and mean. "She warned me, or she warned herself." Tommy pointed at the tracks. 2 riders left the alley fast. Jesse knelt and touched the prints. Spur pattern like jailhouse boots. Tommy swallowed hard. "The sheriff?" Jesse tied his bandana tight. "He wants me in the dirt or in his cell." Tommy said, "Which one first?" Jesse rose slow. "He'll try for both." They sheltered beneath a wind-carved arch where the heat built slow. Tommy said, "Why frame you now?" Jesse traced a bullet groove in the stone. "Because truth ages well, and men don't." Tommy said, "You mean Ransom's truth." Jesse tasted grit. "He sells order and buys fear." Tommy frowned. "Elena stands beside him sometimes." Jesse's voice cooled. "Sometimes is a pose." Tommy said, "You trust her?" Jesse's jaw ticked. "I trust what she risks." A hawk screamed above the arch. Tommy said, "We need proof." Jesse nodded. "No. We take it from his hands." Tommy whispered, "Alive?" Jesse said, "Alive long enough." They rode back by creek willows, where water muttered secrets. Elena waited by a fallen cottonwood. She said, "You were meant to die last night." Jesse kept distance. "You light the fuse, or just watch it burn?" She scanned the ridge. "Men in town wear the sheriff's smile." Tommy said, "Why warn us now?" Elena's mouth was tired. "Because I hate debts I cannot pay." Jesse said, "Name the debtor." She whispered, "A ledger in the jail safe, names and payments." Jesse's stare hardened. "And the key?" Elena held his gaze. "On his belt, always." Tommy shivered. "Then we cut it free." Jesse said, "We steal the town's soul." A storm crawled in from the flats as thunder rolled like wagons. Jesse said, "Tonight we take that ledger." Tommy said, "We sneak or we burn." Jesse looked at the sky. "Rain covers sins." Elena tightened her shawl. "Ransom doubles his rounds after dark." Jesse smiled without teeth. "Then we go before dark." Tommy breathed fast. "Front or back?" Jesse said, "Front," with calm feet and borrowed smiles. Elena's voice thinned. "He will be waiting." Jesse touched the old scar on his palm. "So will I." Lightning gave the town a skeleton grin, and the plan felt carved in bone. The day stretched heavy as Jesse and Tommy rode back into the outskirts, the horses lathered from the storm's passing. Jesse said, "Ransom won't stop until I'm buried or broken." Tommy glanced at the town, smoke still curling from chimneys. "Then why go back?" Jesse's jaw clenched. "Because I can't outrun ghosts that wear badges." Elena rode behind, her shawl damp, eyes fixed on the street ahead. "The ledger is the town's spine," she said. "Break it and his power bleeds out." Jesse shot her a look. "You carry truth like a blade, But truth cuts both ways. Tommy rubbed his hands nervously. And if he's waiting inside? Jesse stared at the jailhouse roof glinting in sunlight. Then, the waiting ends. The townsfolk eyed them with suspicion, shutters creaking closed. A boy pointed at Jesse and whispered, "Outlaw." Jesse heard it like a nail in his coffin. Elena's voice softened. "Your name burns because he fans the fire." Jesse muttered, "Then I'll burn brighter." Tommy said, "Or burn out." Jesse replied, "Either way, fire leaves scars." The smell of gun oil hung thick in the air as the square loomed closer, and every step of their horses felt like a drumbeat of judgment. Inside the saloon the air was thick with stale whiskey and whispers. Jesse pushed through swinging doors, the wood groaning like old bones. Every gaze cut sharp as knives. Bartender Saul muttered, "Hell's come walking." Jesse said, "Just thirsty." Tommy lingered near the wall, hands twitching. Elena's dress drew stares, but her eyes dared anyone to speak. Sheriff Ransom sat at the far table, boots crossed, whiskey glass sweating. "You sure do enjoy walking into cages," he said. Jesse's voice carried steel. "Better than running from cowards." Ransom laughed low. "Your mouth always wrote checks your soul couldn't cash." Jesse stepped closer. "Funny, I recall you cashing plenty with blood not yours." The room tensed, cards paused midair, a chair scraped. Ransom leaned forward, badge gleaming. "Ledger's mine and so's the town. You try and take either, you'll swing higher than the church bell." Jesse said, "A bell can toll for more than one man." Tommy whispered, "We should leave." Elena's eyes flickered with secret knowledge. "Not yet," she said. The silence that followed was heavier than lead. Jesse leaned on the bar, watching Saul's hand tremble as he poured. "Funny thing about ledgers," Jesse said. "They tell stories even graves can't hide." Saul whispered, "You'll get me killed." Jesse said, "Not if you point the way." Ransom's deputies entered, spurs loud as verdicts. Tommy tensed, eyes darting to Jesse. "3 of them," he murmured. Jesse's grip on his glass was steady. "Then, 3 less tomorrow." Elena stepped between, her voice smooth. "Gentlemen, no need to paint the floor red today." One deputy sneered, "Lady, you stand in a dead man's shadow." Jesse's eyes narrowed. "Shadows can smother light if they grow long enough." The deputies circled, hands twitching near holsters. Saul muttered, "Ledger's locked in the safe. Sheriff's belt key opens it." Jesse whispered to Tommy, "You hear that?" Tommy nodded, pulse loud in his throat. Elena said, "The moment you touch that door, Jesse, every gun in town will rise." Jesse finished his whiskey slow. "Then I best be quicker than the sunrise." The saloon's piano struck a broken chord as Jesse stepped out into the afternoon glare. Dust swirled, and townsfolk leaned from doorframes. Tommy whispered, "We're marked now." Jesse replied, "We've always been marked." Elena walked beside him, her dress brushing mud. "Hillpost guards tonight," she said. Jesse's gaze fixed on the jailhouse window where a shadow shifted. "Then we move before dark." A rider thundered in with news, shouting, "Posse rides at sundown." The town stirred like a stirred anthill. Tommy said, "They'll hunt us." Jesse answered, "Let them chase smoke." Elena's voice cracked, "You'll make this a war." Jesse said, "It already is." The church bell rang again, louder this time, and Jesse muttered, "Every toll's a countdown." Tommy grabbed his arm. "How many tolls left?" Jesse stared at the sky. "As many as it takes." The weight of choice pressed heavier than the revolver at his hip, and still he kept walking. Evening shadows stretched long as Jesse, Tommy, and Elena huddled in a barn outside town. Horses stamped nervously, sensing the storm of men gathering. Tommy said, "If we take the ledger, we'll have proof." Jesse shook his head. "Proof don't always save men, but it can damn liars." Elena's voice softened. "If you're caught, Ransom won't just hang you, he'll bury your name deeper than dirt." Jesse's eyes hardened. "My name's already buried. I'm digging it out." Tommy slammed his fist into hay. You can't keep carrying this weight alone. Jesse placed a scarred hand on his shoulder. That's why you're here. Elena's gaze lingered. And me? Jesse looked away, still figuring that out. The barn creaked under the weight of silence. Outside, torches flared as deputies gathered. Tommy whispered, "They're moving." Jesse checked his revolver. Then so are we. Thunder cracked again in the distance, but this time it wasn't the storm. It was the sound of men loading rifles. Night pressed down heavy as Jesse, Tommy, and Elena crept along the back alleys of Dry Creek. Dogs barked in the distance, shutters slammed, and the town felt like a coffin waiting to close. Jesse whispered, "Every step we take rattles his chains." Tommy replied, "Then maybe we stop stepping." Jesse shook his head. "A man who stops moving is already buried." Elena's shawl trailed in the dirt, her voice sharp. "Don't mistake fear for stillness. Fear keeps hearts beating." Jesse glanced at her. "Or stops them if you hold it too long." They passed the blacksmith's forge, glowing embers spitting sparks like restless spirits. Tommy asked, "What if the ledger isn't enough?" Jesse said, "Then I'll show this town who Ransom truly is." A figure moved in the shadows and whispered, "Go back, Hale." Jesse raised his revolver, voice steady. "Or what?" The gear vanished into the dark, leaving silence thick as tar. Tommy muttered, "The whole town's listening." Jesse said, "Then let them hear the truth screaming." The trio slipped into the churchyard where graves leaned under crooked crosses. Jesse paused at a marker, running a scarred hand over the name of a fallen brother. "Every stone here whispers my sins," he murmured. Tommy shifted uneasily. "We shouldn't linger." Elena touched a headstone, her voice low. "The dead know more than the living." Jesse's eyes hardened. "The dead don't bleed when the sheriff collects his debts." A lantern glowed near the chapel door. Deputy Mark stood guard, rifle in hand. Tommy whispered, "One man." Jesse answered, "One problem." He slid into the shadows, but Elena grabbed his arm. "Killing him will damn you further." Jesse met her gaze. "Sometimes damnation's the only road to redemption." He moved quick as a ghost, disarming the deputy with brutal efficiency. The man slumped unconscious, rifle clattering against stone. Tommy's breath came fast. "You didn't kill him." Jesse said, "Not tonight." The church bell loomed above, silent but heavy, like judgment waiting to fall. They broke into the undertaker's back room, lit only by candles guttering against drafts. Coffins stacked along the walls, silent witnesses to whispered schemes. Jesse pried open a crate, revealing rifles bound for Ransom's men. "He arms them with fear," Jesse said. Tommy touched the cold steel. "Enough to take the whole county." Elena's jaw tightened. "He buys loyalty with bullets." Jesse shoved the lid closed. "Then we starve him of both." Footsteps sounded outside, and Jesse signaled silence. Through a crack, two deputies strolled by, speaking of the sheriff's plan to brand Jesse an enemy of the law at dawn. Tommy whispered, "He'll make you outlaw twice over." Jesse growled, "Then I'll wear the brand until it burns him instead." Elena's eyes softened briefly. "You can't win this alone." Jesse stared at her, shadows cutting lines across his face. "That's why you're still here." The weight of alliances felt fragile as the storm of violence drew closer. The storm of conflict thickened as Jesse led them to the abandoned stables near the riverbank. Rain from the earlier storm had left the ground slick, hoofprints pressed deep. Jesse said, "He's gathering his men here before dawn." Tommy scanned the shadows. "How do you know?" Jesse pointed at fresh tracks, all leading to town. "Because I've marched in that circle before." Elena's voice cut through. "Then you know he won't stop until the soil drinks blood." Jesse answered, "So we make him bleed his own." They entered the stables, finding a map tacked to the wall, red X across farms marked for seizure. Tommy's voice cracked. "He's stealing everything." Jesse said, "Control the land, control the people." Elena touched the map, her fingers trembling. "And bury anyone who resists." Jesse tore the map free. "Not tonight." Thunder cracked overhead, and the river swelled louder, a warning of storms yet to come. They regrouped in the canyon as dawn threatened, firelight flickering against jagged stone. Tommy said, "We can't fight them all." Jesse sat sharpening his knife, sparks dancing. "We don't fight them all, we fight the man holding the leash." Elena paced, cloak drawn tight. "Ransom won't face you fair." Jesse replied, "Fair's a word men like him choke on." Tommy's voice shook. "And if we fail?" Jesse met his eyes. "Then we carve our names into the dirt so deep, he can't scrub them out." Elena stopped pacing, her eyes glimmering with something Jesse couldn't read. "Maybe the dirt already owns us." Jesse stood, the fire painting his face in copper. "Then let's make the dirt remember." The sound of riders echoed faint in the canyon distance, a promise of the hunt soon to begin. Jesse tightened his belt and said, "Tomorrow he comes for me. Tonight I go for him." The jailhouse loomed in the early dawn haze, lanterns glowing like watchful eyes. Jesse, Tommy, and Elena crouched behind a trough, breath clouding in the chill. Jesse whispered, "That ledger's the sheriff's crown." Tommy's voice trembled. "And his noose for you." Jesse said, "Then I'll tighten it on him first." Elena pointed to the barred window. Inside on the desk, I saw him gloat over it. Jesse's jaw hardened. "You've been close enough to see him gloat?" Elena's eyes flashed. "Close enough to know his lies." Tommy asked, "Why didn't you warn us sooner?" She swallowed. "Because once I believed him." Jesse stared, fury caged in silence. The church bell tolled faint, marking the hour. Jesse said, "We move now." They slipped inside, boots whispering across the floorboards. Jesse's hand trembled as he reached the sheriff's desk. The ledger sat waiting, but the lock on the safe was snapped open already. Jesse whispered, "We're too late." Inside the sheriff's office, papers littered the floor like broken promises. Jesse kicked the door shut behind them, revolver raised. The safe yawned open, empty. "He knew we were coming," Jesse growled. Elena said, "He wanted you here." Tommy froze. "Then where is he?" A slow clap echoed from the corner. Sheriff Ransom stepped out of the shadows, badge gleaming like a blade. "Always 2 steps behind, Hale." Jesse leveled his gun. "You're the one hiding behind locks and lies." Ransom smiled. "Locks open easy, lies by towns." Elena's voice shook. "Where's the ledger?" Ransom's eyes never left Jesse. "Ask the lady standing next to you." Jesse turned, stunned. Elena's face blanched, guilt cracking her mask. Tommy gasped. "You gave it to him?" Elena's whisper barely carried. "I thought I could keep you alive." Jesse's rage burned cold. "By betraying me again?" The room seemed to shrink as the truth settled like ash. The silence cracked with Tommy shouting, "She played us!" Elena's tears welled as she reached for Jesse. "I never meant to." Jesse stepped back, revolver trembling. "You meant enough." Ransom chuckled, enjoying the fracture. "Funny how trust is the cheapest currency." Jesse growled, "You'll hang for this." Ransom replied, "No, Hale, you will." Deputies stormed in, rifles leveled. Jesse shoved Tommy behind the desk, firing wild. Elena screamed, diving for cover. Wood splinters flew as bullets carved the office. Jesse shouted, "Run!" Tommy yelled back, "Not without you." Jesse kicked over the lantern, fire spilling across the floor. Smoke rose, choking the room. Ransom coughed, shouting, "Bring him down." Jesse leapt through the back window, glass raining like judgment. Tommy followed, coughing hard, but Elena stayed frozen in the smoke, torn between her choices. They tumbled into the alley, coughing smoke, hearts hammering. Jesse grabbed Tommy's arm, pulling him into the shadows. "You shouldn't have followed." Tommy wheezed. "I won't leave you." Footsteps thundered inside, shouts of pursuit spilling into the street. Jesse pressed against the wall, revolver shaking in his hand. "She played me twice," he muttered. Tommy said, "She's still inside." Jesse's eyes burned. where she belongs. But even as he said it, he looked back toward the smoke rising from the window. Damn it, he growled. Deputies burst into the street, lanterns swinging, voices calling his name. Jesse whispered, "We move fast." Tommy asked, "And Elena?" Jesse shoved him toward the stables. "We live first, then we decide." The night air stank of smoke and betrayal, and Jesse knew his war had just shifted into something darker than vengeance. They hid among the abandoned wagons by the livery, the sounds of the posse spreading through town. Tommy whispered, "She lied, Jesse." She handed it to him. Jesse's face was carved from stone. "She chose survival, not us." Tommy said, "Then she's our enemy." Jesse shook his head. "No, she's his pawn. But pawns cut both ways." He loaded fresh rounds into his revolver, steel clicking like clockwork. "Ransom wants me to fall alone. I want." Tommy's voice cracked. "So what now?" Jesse looked at the rising sun. "Now we take back the town one bullet at a time." But in his chest, the betrayal cut deeper than the threat of death. Elena's image haunted him. Was she victim, villain, or both? The answer gnawed like a wolf. Jesse whispered, "This doesn't end with proof anymore. It ends with blood." Tommy swallowed hard, realizing their fight had crossed into war. Dawn cut the sky in half as Jesse and Tommy crouched near the livery, the smell of smoke still thick. Jesse whispered, "We strike before he gathers them." Tommy's hands shook. "He'll expect that." Jesse steadied him. "He expects fear, not fire." Elena emerged from the haze, face pale, dress torn. "You're alive," she breathed. Jesse's glare burned. "Alive despite you." She stepped closer. "I never wanted him to win. He owns me like he owns this town." Tommy snapped, "You handed him the ledger." Elena's voice broke. "I thought it would save you." Jesse's revolver stayed low, but his eyes stayed colder than steel. "You chose him, not me." A silence heavier than death lingered, broken only by hoofbeats rolling in the distance. Jesse muttered, "No more running. Tonight, Dry Creek decides." They moved into the church, its pews empty, shadows stretching long. Jesse's boots echoed like judgment. Tommy whispered, "Feels like walking into a grave." Jesse said, "Every fight's a sermon." Elena touched the altar rail. "He keeps records here too, hidden beneath the pulpit." Jesse pried at the boards, finding a small box. Inside lay names, payments, debts written in blood-red ink. "Proof enough to burn his empire," Jesse muttered. Suddenly, the door slammed open. Deputies spilled in with rifles raised. Ransom's voice thundered, "You think the church saves you? This house belongs to me." Jesse's hand hovered near his revolver. "Then it's time to cleanse it." Gunfire shattered the sacred silence, bullets ripping through pews. Jesse dove, rolling behind the altar. Tommy fired wildly, eyes wide with terror. Elena ducked, clutching the ledger pages. Jesse shouted, "Keep that safe!" A deputy fell screaming, blood pooling beneath a hymn book. Smoke thickened, light fractured by stained glass shards. Ransom's voice roared from outside. "Hail! You'll die branded as a thief." Jesse snarled back, "Better a thief than a coward." Tommy's rifle jammed and he cursed. Jesse tossed him a pistol, saying, "Make every shot count." Elena's eyes locked on Jesse. "If we fall here, the truth burns with us." Jesse's gaze hardened. "Then we don't fall." The gunfire ceased, leaving ringing silence. 3 deputies lay still. Jesse, blood streaked on his arm, pulled Tommy to his feet. "We move before more arrive." Elena clutched the ledger tight. "He'll burn the town before he lets this out." Jesse snarled. "Then we let it out faster." They slipped through the back, emerging into an alley soaked with dawn light. Hoofbeats thundered nearer. Ransom's full posse was gathering. Tommy whispered, "There's too many." Jesse's eyes sharpened. "Then we cut off the head." Elena gasped. "You mean face him?" Jesse's voice was iron. "Face him or die running." Tommy swallowed hard, but his jaw set. Then, we face him. The town square loomed, waiting like an execution ground. They reached the square, its silence crushing. The gallows loomed like a vulture, rope swaying in the morning breeze. Jesse muttered, "He built this for me." Tommy said, "Then we tear it down." Elena whispered, "Ransom's coming." From the far end, the sheriff appeared, flanked by riders, his coat spotless, his badge gleaming like a blade. He called out, "You dragged my town into hell, Hale." Jesse answered, "No, Sheriff, you dressed it in chains." The crowd gathered at windows, fearful eyes watching. Jesse raised his revolver. "This ends today." Ransom smiled cold. "So it does." Silence fell, sharp as glass, as the square became a stage for a reckoning no soul would forget. The square grew still, sunlight sharp on gallows wood. Jesse stepped forward, boots crunching grit. Sheriff Ransom stood opposite, hand brushing his holster. "End of the line, Hale," he said. Jesse's voice cut back. "Lines can bend, Sheriff, but men break." The crowd pressed at windows, whispers like ghosts. Tommy shifted behind Jesse. "We're outnumbered." Jesse replied, "Not outwilled." Elena clutched the ledger, her eyes torn. "This won't save you." Jesse said, "I'm not asking it to." Ransom smirked. "You're a relic outlaw." Jesse's jaw set. Maybe relics remind men what matters. The wind kicked dust between them, carrying the scent of blood yet to be spilled. Ransom's hand twitched lower, and Jesse's breath slowed. "Draw, Sheriff," Jesse whispered. Ransom grinned cold. "Patience makes the shot sweeter." The silence broke as Tommy shouted, "Now!" Jesse's revolver cleared leather in a blur, fire splitting the dawn. Ransom's gun barked back, bullets cracking the air. Townsfolk gasped, ducking behind shutters. Jesse staggered, a line of blood on his arm, but his stance held. Ransom smirked. "You're slower than legend says." Jesse growled, "Legends outlive liars." Elena cried, "Stop this," but neither man listened. The duel had become more than survival. It was judgment carved in lead. Gunfire roared as deputies joined the fight, rifles cracking from rooftops. Jesse dragged Tommy behind a trough. "Hold steady," he barked. Tommy fired, dropping one deputy. Elena screamed, clutching the ledger as bullets ripped splinters around her. Jesse leapt from cover, returning fire, eyes locked on Ransom. The sheriff advanced calmly, bullets whistling by. "You can't kill the law, Hale," he shouted. Jesse's reply came with fire. "You ain't the law." A deputy fell, smoke curling from Jesse's revolver. Tommy gasped, "We can't hold them." Jesse's voice thundered. "We don't hold. We end it." He rose, charging forward through smoke. Jesse and Ransom closed distance, smoke curling around them like a shroud. Jesse's revolver clicked empty. Ransom sneered, "Out of bullets, outlaw." Jesse hurled the empty iron aside, drawing his knife. Ransom holstered his gun and pulled his own blade, grin wide. "Let's see if the legend bleeds slow." They circled, knives gleaming in dawnlight, blood dripping from Jesse's arm. Tommy cried out, "No, Jesse." Elena whispered, "This is the only way." The crowd watched breathless from windows. Ransom lunged, Jesse parried, sparks of steel flashing. Each strike was vengeance and betrayal colliding. Jesse growled, "This ends with one of us in the dirt." The duel ended in a blur. Jesse drove his knife into Ransom's chest, the sheriff's grin fading as blood spread across his coat. Ransom gasped, "You will never be free." Jesse shoved him back, watching him collapse beneath the gallows he built. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of burning timbers nearby. Tommy staggered forward, eyes wide. "You did it." Jesse's face was grim. "No, I ended it." Elena dropped the ledger, tears streaking her dirt-stained cheeks. "The town will never forget." Jesse whispered, "They'll remember the truth, not me." The crowd stepped into the square slowly, no longer hiding. Dry Creek had a new dawn, but it came painted in blood. The square emptied slowly, townsfolk stepping from shadows like souls released. Jesse stood in silence, breath ragged, blood drying on his sleeve. Tommy whispered, "They're looking to you now." Jesse shook his head. "I'm no savior." Elena, trembling, bent to pick up the fallen ledger. "It's proof enough to rebuild," she said softly. Jesse's eyes hardened. "Or proof enough to bury me deeper." A child approached, clutching his mother's hand, staring at Jesse with both fear and awe. Jesse tipped his hat slightly, muttering, "Don't follow my road, boy." The crowd murmured, uncertain if they'd gained freedom or traded one master for another. The undertaker's wagon rolled quietly, collecting the fallen deputies and the sheriff's body. Jesse watched without speaking, shadows deep in his eyes. Tommy said, "Hell rot in the ground he poisoned." Jesse muttered, "Ground never forgets blood." Elena placed a hand on Jesse's arm, hesitant. "You gave them a chance to choose." Jesse pulled away. "Chance doesn't erase chains." The church bell tolled, not for a hanging, but as if to cleanse the square. The sound echoed across town, pulling shutters open. Faces appeared, no longer hiding. Jesse felt the weight of their gaze, heavy as judgment, yet light with possibility. Later, in the saloon, Jesse nursed a glass of whiskey while silence wrapped around the room. Tommy sat across, eyes burning with questions. "What now?" Jesse stared at the amber liquid. "Now I walk away before the chains grow back." Elena entered quietly, ledger in her arms. "Stay," she said. "Help rebuild what you bled for." Jesse looked at her, weariness etched deep. "I don't rebuild. I break what needs breaking." Tommy clenched his fists. "But you showed me men can fight." Jesse's eyes softened. "Then fight smarter than me." The room felt heavy, as though the ghosts of the town leaned in to listen. As the sun dipped low, Jesse saddled his horse by the livery. Tommy stood nearby, voice cracking. "You're just leaving." Jesse tightened the reins. "This town doesn't need another outlaw." Tommy said, "It needs a man who stood up." Jesse placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then you be that man." Elena approached, her face pale but resolute. "If you go, they'll forget you." Jesse met her gaze. "That's the point." She whispered, "I never meant to betray you." Jesse's voice was steady. "Intentions don't wash blood away." With that, he swung into the saddle, the weight of silence pressing harder than chains. Jesse rode toward the horizon, the town shrinking behind him. The gallows stood silent, a skeleton of judgment fading in the morning glow. Tommy's voice echoed faint from the square. "I'll carry it, Jesse." Elena's cry followed, "Don't let the past bury you." But Jesse didn't turn. His eyes fixed on the endless desert, scars etched deeper than the tracks he left. He whispered to himself, "Every man pays, one way or another." The wind carried dust across the trail, erasing his path slowly, as though the land itself conspired to forget him. Dry Creek was free, but its outlaw walked into legend, alone.